Hello everyone, welcome to the session. I request all of you to please keep your microphone and camera on off mode. So only the speakers and the panelists, I'll request them to keep their camera on for effective session. Great. So may I request everyone to please keep your cameras in off. Vedant, great. Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you all to Avantika Digital. The current pandemic has thrown a lot of challenges in every field, and education per se has been affected the most. So today we have our CBSE board exam results, which are out probably half an hour back, and we all know how much everyone has waited for that. So we are happy to announce that Avantika is going digital, and we are collaborating with Instructure, a global organization in learning management systems, and we are utilizing their one of the services called as Canvas Learning System for our education delivery. For that, we have with us a very experienced set of panel. Uh, Before we get into panel discussion, I would like to invite all the speakers for a brief introduction about them. First, I would like to invite Dr. Prashil Suryavanshi. Dr. Suryavanshi comes with more than 2 decades of experience in education and is currently leading Avantika University as a Vice Chancellor. He is probably the youngest Vice Chancellor in the country, the celebrated author of 4 books and over 50 research papers. He has several prestigious awards to his name. Dr. Suryavanshi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Vaibhav. A very good afternoon to all our students, their parents. I see a lot of the numbers swelling by the second. A lot of people joining in for our this initiative. I welcome all the students. It has been a hell lot of a time. I mean, it's close to 4 months since we have not seen you physically, but I'm so glad to see all your faces, whatever I could in the short span. I also welcome all the parents, my faculty members, the employees of Avantika University, and on behalf of Avantika University in particular, and on behalf of MIT's group of institutions in general, I welcome all of you for this unique event, for this unique program called as referred as Avantika Digital. Now, first and foremost, and it's basically because I see a lot of lot of people outside the ecosystem who have also joined this particular event, and I welcome all to this historical city of Ujjain. And Ujjain has got a rich legacy of over 5,000 years, and historically Ujjain has been known for education, and more specifically for art, arithmetic, astronomy, physics, science, and likewise. So Avantika with its forward-looking outlook and Avantika with its long-standing vision of creating a disruption in the higher education landscape of this country has taken this initiative to take the stride of the pandemic in a very positive way and convert this calamity into an opportunity. And in doing that, I'm very happy and I'm very glad that we have been able to partner with one of the global leaders in educational technology in Canvas or Instructure, as the company is known, and Canvas as the product is known. And this is an opportunity for all of us at Avantika to really go gung-ho, really approach the education paradigm in a very different way. Avantika, as Vaibhav mentioned, Avantika has done a whole lot of effort in the past 3 months, and the efforts of the last 3 months has resulted into what you are seeing it today. And I am very happy and glad to inform all of you that Avantika is now 100% ready to go digital. Avantika is 100% ready to go online. While the spirit and essence of education will not change, nothing will change, and this is an assurance from me to the entire student community and to the parents. The whole experience that you have always had at the campus, we are essentially trying to augment that experience. We are essentially trying to elevate that experience to the next level. Digital learning, my dear friends, like it or not, is the new norm. And digital learning does not take away anything from the physical aspects. In fact, that is the reason why Avantika has partnered with Canvas, and with the numerous tools and with the numerous integrations that we will be doing with Canvas. Believe me, you're not going to miss on the single aspect of education, be it design, be it engineering, be it fashion, or be it any particular vertical, or be it any particular domain of education. Just to sum up, I would just like to say that a crisis that all of us fear will drive us apart, believe me, will only further unite us in this common cause. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Over to you, Vaibhav.
Thank you so much, Dr. Motivation and enlightening words. Our next speaker, Mr. Christopher Bradman, a strategic visionary and a business leader. Mr. Bradman is a general manager, Asia Pacific region for Instructure. He comes with over 20 years of experience in enterprise software sales and has the ability to create revenue in new territories across the world. His depth of sales skill and breadth of knowledge around technology is commendable. Mr. Bradman, we welcome you, and over to you.
Thank you, Vibhav, and thank you for inviting me to this session. I'd like to thank Dr. Prashil for the welcome and also the opportunity to join the launch today. So my name is Christopher Bradman, and I'm the APAC GM, General Manager for Instructure. And we are the company behind Canvas, and in turn, your online learning platform. I think in these uncertain times, it's great to see Avantika University embracing such a positive approach to ensure learning can continue. You know, we're privileged to play a part of that enablement of your digital journey. And when you join, when you partner with Canvas, you join over 5,000 institutions in over 70 countries that are providing education to over 30 million students on the Canvas platform. So you're certainly in very good company. And by joining the Canvas family, you really become part of the Canvas community, which is a group of over 700,000 educators who collaborate and learn from each other, as well as contributing to our future roadmap.
UX design. He is the founder of Design Jam, and then he's also leading UX design at Mindtree. He extensively uses technology in his design, and he is one of the best person to speak on this occasions. So over to you, Mr. Surya, and we welcome you.
Hello all. Hello Vaibhav. Thank you for giving that intro. I think so. And thank you to Vice Chancellor Sir, and thank you to all the panelists who are I have the honor to share the space with, and also the young folks who are in this audience panel, and also parents, I think so, are there. So I am very thankful to be here. And a little bit about me is given by Vaibhav. I have a 4 to 5 year experience in UX design. But in this crucial 4 to 5 years, I have scaled a lot of things, and I have found a lot of gaps in design and industry. There is a gap between industries as well as students. I'm talking about the educational institutions. I think so one of the key reasons that Design Jam was born, the initiative which was from my side, is bridging the gap between industry and educational institutions in India, basically. So I'm a lead UX designer in Mindtree. I am actually working on AR, VR projects enhancing AR and augmented reality and mixed realities into different domains of projects in Mindtree. That is what currently I'm doing. And lovely to be here. I think so we can share a lot with our panelists. And over to you, Vaibhav. Thank you all for having me.
Great to hear that, Rajiv. Now we move on to our panel discussion. For our panel discussion, we have with us Mr. Manish Upadhyay, who will be moderating the session. Mr. Upadhyay comes with more than 25 years of experience in EdTech industry, and he has mentored a number of EdTech startups. So over to you, Manish, to take this discussion forward.
Thanks, Vaibhav. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome all. Welcome all students, parents, fellow panelists, and most importantly, the faculty members. So they are also the backbone of the entire experience. Now, I think Avantika has gone digital, which is I think one of the early institutions who have really gone digital, and in a true sense, their entire experience is now on a digital platform, which is what makes it very unique and interesting for all of us. But from a students and parents perspective, I'm sure there will be a lot of questions in their mind. How different is an offline experience from an online experience? Am I going to get the same value that I got in offline in the online? What are the advantages, disadvantages? So those would be the questions that would be playing in students and parents' mind. And I hope to address, through this moderated panel discussion, some of these questions that are playing their mind. I have not seen enough queries till now, from the audience, barring one where they're saying they're asking about the schedule of online classes and which platform they will be using. So I would encourage audience to ask questions while the discussion is happening parallelly. I will pick and pose those questions to the panelists, and keep it a very conversation, fluid type of a session, and very open session.
Yes, Manish, sorry to interrupt you. Your voice is coming a bit low, so if you can just be a bit loud, so everyone will be able to hear.
Is it better now, Vaibhav? Is it better?
Better. Yeah, we can continue.
Okay. So my first question, to the panelist is about preparedness needed for, attending online classes. How tech savvy a student should be, and what are the kind of technical difficulties they might face, or is it really a problem or not? So Christopher, you can begin first. Christopher, you are on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think, the amazing thing about, we see in the student community is that individuals tend to be very tech savvy. I mean, in part of everyday life, we are really bombarded by different technologies every single day. So what we tend to find is that students have a very good appreciation of technology when they do enter the university environment. I think in terms of kind of how we see technology as an aid to kind of impact learning and the development of a student, for us, we've built Canvas around student engagement and giving students a voice in their learning. So for us, class discussions can be extended beyond classroom time, and we have something called Speed Grader in Canvas, which provides a feedback loop as well. So for us, using that technology to be a constant communication channel between students and educators, I think is a key part for us as well. We've also seen a particular growth in the use of video, for instruction as well. So, we have tools that allow you to kind of create video and actually allow that video to be content to be part of the overall coursework. So I think we see that as a key factor. And again, those are tools which students are very used to interacting with and absorbing content in that way.
So Christopher, a follow-on question. So in terms of, if you look at students who are on instructor platform, what's the kind of time they normally take to get very, very acquainted with the platform, and how easy is it for them to cope with it, in the real sense? Are they getting bombarded by too many tools? So what are what are the best practices you've seen across the board?
Yeah, I think some of the best practices go through. We have a simple framework that we work on, and if you look at what essentially students are asking, those are the core things, such as what am I supposed to do? When is it due? How did I do? Can you help me? And what more can I do? So we kind of keep focused around answering some of those key questions that students have. The whole basis of Canvas as a platform is to make the whole student experience very easy. I mean, what we find from students is that they don't want to go to multiple places to see all their different coursework. They really want one platform to live in, and that is Canvas. And then I had to have the content be all hosted in that one particular area.
Prasheel, there is a question from the audience about how different the online classes would be from physical classes. You want to take that?
Yeah. Now, obviously, I mean, as I said earlier as well, the spirit and the essence of education does not change. The mode definitely does. Although the mode is definitely changing, there are essentially three types of interactions that I, as an educator, I am looking at. Basically, and the whole education experience or the whole online experience at Avantika would be essentially focused on these three interactions. And we can call this as our own interaction design for education. The number one is student to content interaction. How does the student interact with the content? Second is this, how does student interact with the faculty? And third is, how does the student interact with the student? Now, Canvas as a platform essentially enables us to have all these three interactions in a very seamless way. And because they're happening in a very, very seamless way, the experience that we have. Now, of course, I mean, you can't actually be working or getting the experience of working on an actual lathe machine or an actual CNC machine. But then Canvas, with its rich integration of tools, and if I'm not wrong, there are at least 400 of them, though we have not yet integrated all of them. And that is primarily not to bog down the students with as many tools like what Manish was saying. So essentially the experience, I would say, would be an elevated experience. Of course, the social aspect wherein you physically meet one another or physically meet the student, of course, is something which we cannot get in the online medium. But then there are many other aspects like the discussion forums or the peer assessment or the peer learning or an individual discussions with the faculty, which many times many of the students are apprehensive and skeptical, asking the doubts in the class, or how should I basically go and talk to the faculty member. And like as Christopher said, I mean, this is a millennial generation. And you don't have to teach this generation how to use technology. I would say they are brought with technology. They're brought in with technology right since their birth. And Canvas, for that matter, is a very intuitive tool. And most of the things are quite self-explanatory. And Canvas also follows a very similar mechanism. And this is purely coincidence, Christopher, that we also follow the same module and the unit-based framework that Canvas anyways was following. So the students are going to find it extremely similar to what they were trying to do in the physical class. Yeah, Manish.
Sure. No, so in fact, just to also add to it, I was having discussion with Prasheel before the conference, and he mentioned to me that they have divided also the experience into pre-class, during class, and post-class to exactly mimic how it happens in the physical offline environment. So there will be pre-class reading materials, links, videos that would be shared. There will be during class, live classes through Google Meets and other interactive platforms. And there will be post-class quizzes, assignments, grading, analytics reports. All of that would be available. The only thing which obviously no one can claim to do, as Prasheel said, is hands-on experience on a lathe machine, or a 3D printer and all those things, which we hope to cover probably after in the next semesters. as and when the situation brightens up. Rajiv, there is also a question, if you can see, about issues considered to how parallel are offline worlds and online worlds. We're talking about audibility, talking about probing silent and laid back students. What are your views? What are the things that you have seen in your domain from a user experience perspective, that a good online platform normally covers, and what can the students expect to see, and what they should do, in fact, for their better experience? Any thoughts on that?
Sure. So thanks, Manish, for that question. I think so, as validly told by other panelists, and as you have also summed it very well, that there are 3 stages of pre-class, during class, and post-class. So yes, there is these kind of stages in learning anywhere. But from user experience point of view, I would like to share with the audience that a recent project we were doing on how we can transform or redefine learning in this COVID times. So we came with an analysis and we researched multiple teachers and students, and we got insights that this pandemic has done a good thing, that it is right now actually motivating people to think redefining of learning. You should redefine the pedagogy of teaching. If you just mimic the classroom dynamics to the online, it won't work for a longer period. It will work definitely for 2 to 3 years, but 1 year maybe. But you need to actually, so there is a big difference between user experience if you talk about offline and online. Offline, you have attention spans more. Online, you have really less. So what is that which you can keep them engaging? I'm talking about content. What Vice Chancellor Sir has talked about, content, the first thing. How to engage with that content, with the teacher, with the other students. Peer-to-peer learning is the most best learning. So I think so this is the difference. I think so in the comments also they were asking what is the major difference of offline online. Offline online is actually forcing us to think different ways of redefining our learning, conventional learning methods. So if you give that engagement perspective in user experience, I think so it will go for a longer run, I think so. And definitely iterations happen. That is the product development cycle. Yeah.
In fact, on that,
Manish, I wanted to add here. I mean, I would not like to consider online learning as a replacement of in-campus learning.
Yeah.
Essentially, I mean, right now there is a situation. I mean, we don't know how the future is going to unfold. But online learning, I mean, all the participants who are part of this particular meet or the event, please one needs to understand that this online learning is not a replacement for in-campus learning. This is essentially a supplement. This is essentially a complement to the learnings that are going to happen on the campus. Now, in a scenario like this, where coming to campus or the physical learning is next to impossible, the education cannot stop. Like what Rajiv was mentioning, and a lot of global surveys have already pointed out towards that. I'm sure all of you are aware that Cambridge University has gone online for 1 complete year. Harvard University has gone online for 1 complete year. So it's not that they're replacing their campus. It's all driven by these circumstances. So that's what I said. A crisis that many fear will drive us apart should not drive us apart. Instead, it should unite us in a common cause. And our common cause is education. Now, as I said, you cannot have working on a physical lathe, but there are tools which help you to simulate a lathe. So the learning still is there. The learning doesn't go away. So these tools or online learnings or remote learning or digital learning, as you would like to call as, also creates what I believe is equity in education. So many times, Manish, many people confuse equal and equity as same, but they are not. While equal means we are providing equal opportunities, irrespective of the skills and abilities of the user. Equitable framework also definitely aims at providing equal opportunities, but at the same time, equitable framework also aims at creating that explicit framework, creating some explicit steps whereby the bias is removed. So if a student of first year is being taught, say Photoshop, for example, and a student of final year is being taught Photoshop, for example, there has to be a change in the equity. And digital tools like Canvas and the other tools which we will be integrating in a short while from now will help us create that equity, and no student will have any bias as far as their learning is concerned. Yeah, Manish.
No, so I think very well put. In fact, and that takes me to the next set of questions, which is around what are the benefits of really going online. Obviously, there are going online lacks that physical lab experience, but online has a couple of big benefits. I will open with a couple of them, and then Christopher, I will ask for some case study examples from you. So one big benefit which we have seen is it is really democratizing, as Prashil is saying, the learning process. So a weak student who was earlier not standing in the class and asking questions, now asking questions, and that is, I think, one of the biggest thing which people are seeing across the globe, including in schools as well as colleges, that weaker students have started asking more questions in the online space, which will take this mastery of learning to the next level. And secondly, because faculty is now kind of reviewing their course, because they've been rejigged to do online content. And in fact, I see across the globe, in fact, in other institutions that I advise, faculty is really improving their quality of delivery, because now they are exposed in the sense of their video is being public property kind of stuff. So you're seeing huge increase in faculty's delivery of the content, and weaker students have also started participating more. Over to you, Christopher, to add on to this and share some things that you have seen which has benefited because of the online phenomena.
Thank you, Manish. Yeah, I mean, obviously with COVID-19 as it is, institutions which have already embraced an online learning culture have been able to move very rapidly to adjust to the circumstances. A couple of our customers, University of Oklahoma, for example, they literally on March 9th, they could kind of see that things were going to be problematic, and literally in 3 days they were able to move all of their teaching over entirely onto online learning with Canvas. Similar with, in our own sort of region, in the APAC region, you look at City University in Hong Kong, they've moved, they took 14 days, but they moved 30,000 students over entirely onto online platforms. So I think, it has enabled great speed and agility. But I think, aside of coronavirus, platforms such as Canvas allows students to learn at the pace they want to, but also where they want to as well. And a fundamental principle of when we designed Canvas was that students should be able to learn in any way and in any medium they want to. So, we put a lot of time and effort into things such as our mobile apps, for example. So students can learn online on their laptop, they can learn on the phone, on their iPad, and they can get the same experience. And I think that's very important. And Rajiv, you would know a lot about that from the whole user experience side of things, and making a consistent experience regardless of platform. So I think that's been something we focused a lot on as well. But I mean, also when you start to use online platform, I think when you look further ahead in terms of where our technology is going, the ability to use machine learning and even artificial intelligence to be able to predict outcomes for students and also be able to coach them in the right way, I think is really where we see a key sector of EdTech, and where we can sort of help students longer term.
Rajiv, you would want to add to that and talk about benefits and like Christopher mentioned, mobile versus desktop. Any insights there?
Lovely. I think so. Yes. Seeing from the other point of very positive side impact of this, yes, definitely. If you want to see some statistics, in the last 2 months, the growth of online learning platforms on wherever possible, LinkedIn Learning is one of the top, which is right now. So they have increased drastically because people right now, when the classes are not being continued or put on hold, they are planning to upskill themselves. They are not stopping. Majority of people, I'm talking about majority of people who have access already to technology and already to these platforms. So there is a high, I think so there is a high level and percentage and data is there, which is telling us probably that people are interested in learning online, which is a good insight. So definitely, and now the next two skills are actually the most benefit which I got in this course of time is that three things I put as parallels. One is, first of all, you have to parallelly upskill yourself, learn new things, because you should be ready once this so-called pandemic is off and now industry is actually hiring. Now all industries are a little bit slow and put on holds on hiring. So you need to be ready when industry is ready to hire. So you learn and upskill online tools, which is very good. You start to execute in projects which you are doing as a pet project or an academic project, which is the second one. And the third thing technology is doing is you need to leverage yourself. So a lot of students are actually coming on LinkedIn and they are leveraging by themselves because they want to keep themselves ready for the post-pandemic scenario, which is good. So yeah, these are the benefits I think so online can bring.
Prashil, there
Manish, in addition to this, like I was mentioning about equity, and you definitely touched upon one more point of democratization. I feel online learning also personalizes this learning a lot. And there is the tool in itself provides this personalization. From a faculty perspective, I would say there is a lot more instructional design and planning process which goes into the pipeline. And as you are aware, and I would like to inform this to all our students and parents and our faculty members for the last 20-25 days have been busy building on revamping their courses, deciding on what should go as the pre-class and what should go in the in-class, what should go as the post-class. We do understand, we do understand the flip side of online learning. The lazy and the laid back ones, might just lose interest. So the student engagement and the student involvement is readily inbuilt. And what this time has given to the faculty members is to help them revamp their courses. So a course, maybe the course title or the course code might be same. But if it was taught in one particular way, if it was delivered in one particular way, say maybe last year, this year is going to be very different. This year, even the assignments could be very different. Secondly, in online learning or using tools like Canvas, there are various support systems which are there in place for the learner right from the start. And a lot of support system comes from the Avantika side, a lot of support system also comes from the tools or the Canvases side. Secondly, the faculty member also get more time to resolve or to pay attention to their individual student development. So student engagement, though I have seen a lot of questions in the chat box as far as student engagement and interaction is concerned, whether the student will lose that personal touch with the faculty. But actually, it is the other way around. With tools like, say, maybe Google Meet, like what we are doing right now, or maybe a Zoom or a big blue button, it gives you enormous flexibility to create smaller groups wherein a particular group works on a project. The faculty can keep a track on individual groups. The two groups may or may not interact with each other and likewise. So essentially, I would say, Manish, online will give a much better control on the teaching learning process. Only one thing, and I'm bringing it again, which will be missing and which I'm sure there were some of the questions in the chat box from the industrial design perspective is, how will we do the actual modeling? The actual modeling, the physical modeling, of course, we don't expect you to buy a CNC router or a laser cutting machine right at your home. But till that particular stage, till the digital rendering part, you can very well do at your home. And there are ways, and that's how the Fab Lab at MIT Boston works, wherein everyone works remotely and the files are then digitally shared with the one common facility, and that one common facility just prepares those prototypes. So I believe this to be one of the ways in which we can bring in those physical aspects into learning. Manish.
Yeah, no, so I think on that point, and as you mentioned earlier also, this is for the period when COVID issue is, and as soon as there is movement, there will be obviously social distancing based access to labs that will be provided, so
Yeah.
so you need to be rest assured about that piece, that we are as Avantika equally concerned, I believe, to give you hands-on experience, because that's crucial to the program. The point about how are professors going to be trained, and I will just add to that. There is a big training going with Canvas team of all the professors for usage of tools. So there is a process that has been on for last 1 month, where they're going through the tools and where they're going through their shortlisted tools that they want to use in the class, and then there is a process of looking at recording, reviewing everything is going fine or not. But as it would be a new platform for you, some of the faculty members will be also using it for the first time. So there needs to be a lot more patience on both sides, and give each other that window of patience of a month or two for things to settle down. There will be some teething issues in the earlier stages. They're bound to be, because the medium is new. But what I have seen Avantika is doing its best in terms of at least training professors and setting processes to make sure that you are comfortable. There is another question for you, Christopher, which is how will the learning be different from courses offered on Udemy, Coursera, and Pluralsight? Any examples that you can share about parallel courses that are done on Canvas platform, which competes with these platforms, and any comments on this?
I can't think of any immediate examples of that, but I can certainly get back to you with some once I've spoken to my team on that. I mean, I think I did just want to pick up on one point, actually, just in terms of just relating back to the last question just before we move on, which was how we help the educators train up on this. And I think it's an important point to make, that a lot of our instructional designers are former teachers and education university lecturers as well. So we put a lot of time to ensure that during the training of this, we're seeing it very much from the educators' perspective and also the students as well. So I think that was just an important point to make, just on that last point.
Sure.
But sorry, Manish, was there anything else you wanted to?
No, so I will add. I will.
Yeah, Manish, I would like to add here.
I would say that Udemy, is sort of less flexible in interactions and activity, and is really a complement to Canvas. So I think that's a point we'll make.
Manish, there will definitely be a difference in the courses offered on Udemy vis-a-vis Avantika and courses offered on Coursera or edX vis-a-vis Avantika, in the sense that one of the major aspects that Avantika will push through is for live classes, which Udemy doesn't and Coursera does, but at a very not at a very large scale and not in all the courses. Secondly, the second important difference that Avantika Online or Avantika Digital will have with other digital platforms is the integration of tools. I see this question being asked by a computer science student. So for a computer science perspective, there are tools like Codio and Labsland, whereby you can actually do lab experiments and coding things on your using this tool, wherein the faculty would be able to collaborate live on that particular working, which courses in edX, Coursera, and Udemy do not offer. Courses on Udemy, Coursera, edX mostly are pre-recorded courses with some live classes chipped in between, whereas courses at Avantika will not be pre-recorded at all. It will mostly be live courses and mostly be live lectures. Then the breakout sessions or the breakout groups, project work, group projects, individual assessments, group assessments, peer assessments, all this student engagement experience will be taken to the next level in Avantika Online. Manish, if you could add certain things on this.
So so absolutely. So I think rightly put, all these platforms, Coursera, edX of the world, they are what you call as MOOCs, massively open online courses, which means by its very nature, there are a huge number of students that join those programs. and therefore the level of personalization that you can hope to achieve in those programs are very less. So one big difference would be that a program which is run inside a campus like Avantika, limited to the students who have enrolled, will see a lot more personalization in terms of feedback, in terms of queries that you ask, response that you get, kind of course correction that you can suggest your faculty should do as a group. All of that is possible here. While in terms of output, quality of output, you will find it almost similar in terms of kind of content that you see here, the kind of content you see there. Like Prasheel mentioned, there will be less of, more of live classes here and less of pre-recorded. While in that case, there will be more pre-recorded and live. But otherwise, I think this experience will be more and more personalized than any other MOOC, massively open online courses.
Yeah, I think what we do see is, if you look at Coursera and Udemy courses, we tend to find that they tend to be more content heavy. Interaction and collaboration is pretty minimal, and they're highly kind of self-paced. So you really have sort of minimal synchronous capabilities. So I think when you look at Canvas, we address all those points, and then teachers can choose to use Udemy, Coursera content on Canvas and bring in best-of-breed tools to enable teaching and learning, in the way that you want to do it. And I think that's kind of really been our philosophy from the start, is that Canvas provides you exactly that, that sort of platform to be able to bring in things that you think are most appropriate.
Rajiv, I have a question in terms of user interaction related to how do you time manage things in the online world. So what we have seen in many online programs, the obviously completion rates or attention span, like you mentioned earlier, is less because of its completion rate is less, and because of which there are also time management issues. So what are best practices or examples that you have seen from students' perspective, from faculty perspective, because audience we have faculty also, where time management in the online world, through tools and techniques and design can be handled? Any best practices example there?
As this is something online time management you're talking, very valid, very good question, I think so, because in this span or in this technology driven era where a lot of people are doing a lot of tasks online, you need to actually manage your time accordingly so that you are completing efficiently all the tasks. So basically the key word comes here is efficiency.
Yeah.
So when students come into picture, I think so we grown-up matures are actually more well-to-do with the technological. We know where to focus, what relevantly to use and come out of it. So attention span for students who is less. So I would say, as this is new, so time management, the best thing can be done is nudging. I think so your tools can, a very good book written by, I think so I forgot, but it's a book on nudge, if you can read, or top designers will actually refer these books. It's very good. It's politely saying you to do stuff, reminding you to do stuff. So in this technological world where you're surrounded with too many AI bots, devices, etc., your phone is an AI basically. So how well you can nudge the user without ordering or stopping or preventing the user to use it. It should not be like a hindrance. It should be like a seamless flow. So as user experience designers or user experience as a total ecosystem, I think so the best time management is nudging them to do their tasks. So if your tool provides that, well and good. I think so a lot of educational tools do that. So it can be a seamless approach of like example, I'll tell you, reminding teachers that they need to prepare for a class 1 week ahead is one kind of a very good politely nudging them, and also suggesting them how much time it will take to prepare for that session. Can an AI do that? Yes, a lot of AIs are doing that right now. So this is my point of view. I think so nudging is one of the good things.
No, I think very valid point. In fact, one of the higher education provider, Harappa, I was having a discussion with them, and they said just by nudging, they were able to improve their engagement rate to 70-80% from 30-40%.
Yes.
And I think in Canvas again and other tools, we have automated notifications and approaches, which obviously we are deploying. And we are also working on the nudging piece. And like you mentioned, nudging also needs to get, from an AI perspective, you need to learn when to nudge. What is the good time when students see notification, when the good time students don't see notification. So interesting point. That brings me to the last set of questions, and slightly more, peek into the future kind of a question, which is, how do you, each one of you, view education in coming 2 to 3 years and coming 5 to 10 years, whichever you want to pick. And how do you think it will evolve, especially the higher education space? Anyone can come first, all three of you have to respond to this.
I basically, Manish, I would like to further divide into 3 slots rather than the 2 slots. I see the next year being more of a consolidation. I think the next year, as far as higher education is concerned, though Avantika has been very quick in identifying the situation, adaptively learning from it, and also acting on it rather than just keeping on analyzing the situation. So I believe the future would be, and I have been saying this in many of my talks earlier as well, the future will be not of survival of the fittest, it will be survival of the quickest. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that Avantika has been quick enough to understand this and taken this in its stride. So from a generic higher education perspective, I would say the next 1 year would, in most of the cases, would just go in understanding, analyzing, and then consolidating on that. However, the next 2 to 3 years after that, I personally, as an educator, I see a lot of changes and a lot of learning definitely moving towards digital. And when I say, I'm looking at the questions in the chat box also, there is a difference between MOOCs and there is a difference between remote learning. There is a difference between online learning. There is a difference between digital learning. So, of course, the differences are very subtle. The lines that divide them are very thin, but there are these differences. Next 2 to 3 years, a lot of learning will move online. I now see a lot of user experience tools. Just a couple of weeks back, I happened to be on a panel wherein we were talking of user research. And now there is a European company which has come up, I'm sure Rajiv must be aware of that, who has come up with a tool called as Maze. And Maze is a tool which enables you to do user research in a remote way. So you don't have to really meet the user now, and you get the same experience. So I'm sure the technology industry is also going to take these things in the stride, and a lot of such tools will definitely fall in the place. Now, the period from 4th to 10th is going to be very crucial, and all those people, I personally believe, are going to move forward who embrace technology in letter and spirit. I know, I understand a lot of educationists and a lot of educational institutes will say even today that we have a lot of technology, but having an email or a Gmail or a Google account doesn't necessarily mean that you are techno savvy. So all those institutions and all those universities which embrace this technology are the people who are going to move ahead. And even if you see in the today's context, all the new age universities, and Christopher will second me on that, and if he can also throw light on how many universities in India have really adopted tools like Canvas, and then that's the time when all of us do realize the changes that are happening in this higher education. Yeah, over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Dr. Prajil. So I think looking ahead, I touched on it earlier. We're talking about using the data from the platform and analytics and machine learning. And I think, the interesting thing as we look forward is how can we use that data to improve what we do? So, the data that your institution will kind of collect in terms of how long people may take to do courses, where people are getting where people are getting stuck on courses, and the ability to have a lot more efficient coursework based on the data that you're seeing from the online platform, I think is a really interesting point. And I think if you look at a lot of innovators in the edtech space, they are very much interested to see what machine learning can do. The other area, of course, is to look at augmented reality and virtual reality as well, and that how that can be used to connect and engage with remote learners. Because I think, one thing is very true is that, we've heard a lot of things recently about this is the new normal. And I think, that is absolutely true. We may, we all look forward to being back into in the classroom very soon, but as we move forward, remote learning is going to be a key part of every student's learning structure. So I think it's the more we can kind of use the technology, about how they're using the technology, how they are succeeding in their courses, and how we can use that information to improve their learning is going to be very beneficial.
Very good.
Yeah, so basically, yes, definitely, as VC sir and Christopher has well laid out, that yes, there is, in the initial phase, this is basically the best solution to actually get onto the board. Otherwise, it will be because those people who are getting on board right now with whatever basic technology and the strength we have, we will sustain for the longer run, definitely, because physically being present is near to impossible for the next coming couple of years, I think so. So experts are predicting that it will be for 2 to 3 years, seeing the pandemic fluctuations every now and then. So the best thing is staying home. That is the best social distancing. And yes, I think so. One of the key things I would like to put different is that me working on a project of AR, VR and other immersive technologies, I would not call it at AR, VR. Mostly we call about immersive technologies, and we are relevantly scaling them wherever domains are very concerningly wanting them. Like example, I'm thinking education sector is one thing where engagement factor is on the top. I think so everyone in the panel or everyone for teachers and students will agree to this fact that engagement is one thing which is we want more and we can actually sustain. If that is one thing, because schools are based on this concept of teacher-student dynamics, right? So I think so for engaging, how can immersive technologies come into picture and very relevantly tailor-made for personalized for students. So I think so the initial couple of years, what VC sir was also saying, that the next year we are actually targeting for how to make it learn and make the content better. So I think so the next couple of years or 1 or 2 years is nothing but understanding the personal pattern of students and revamping our design or revamping the product as and when personalizing with the students and teachers as well as faculty.
And actually, just talking about that nudge point that we mentioned earlier about nudging a student when an assignment is due. What we've actually found from we have a capability called Smart Alerts, right? And it does prompt for these type of things. But what we actually found was if you prompt the student when a piece of coursework has been assigned and you do that immediately, that actually provides a higher chance of that coursework being completed than actually nudging a couple of days before it's due. So it's interesting that what you might think would be very beneficial to nudge them just before it's due, actually a better result is to nudge them when it's released, because what we find certainly from our institutions is that I know one of our clients found that if the students delayed starting assignments, they have 21 times the risk of failing their courses than students who start on time. So that sort of nudging students when coursework is released, I think, is very key, and that's all kind of part of the sort of smart alerts that we can bring to the institution.
Yes, okay.
Very valid point.
Prasheel, you were saying something.
Yeah, no, I'll just take a couple of minutes. I mean, I just wanted to give you an interesting case study here. Like in the last semester, when all this hue and cry and the pandemic just happened, everything just stopped. Everything just stalled, and everyone was clueless. So let us say in specific our case of Avantika, we had finished, like half of the term was finished, but half of the term was still pending. And then in whatever best possible way, all our faculty members took this in their stride and in whatever best possible way. But my point is not that. My point is that essentially gave us a lot of data points. And believe me, there were some students who indeed performed in a much better way rather than vis-a-vis they being present in the campus. And that is primarily because of those data points. We were able to track them on a personalized level. So what technology enables is this personalization. What online enabled us is this personalization, and that has been reflected in their grades as well. So I see you had asked me, you posed a question in the sense of what happens in the next 1 year, 2 to 3 years, and 10 years. I also see a lot of data points being gathered and the machine learning algorithms becoming more and more efficient as well. So this also gives me as a researcher an opportunity to do a lot of research in the
history of that, that customer, or in this case, that student, I think is a key point moving forward that the institutions are going to take value from.
In fact, just to give a reality check to our long-term vision, I would say that I see a permanent behavior change happening on both faculty and student side in terms of exposure to online. So they would have consumed online in the COVID times, but the hybrid model, especially in higher education, I think will continue. There will be a lot of stuff that can be done in an offline way which you can't do in online, including peer interactions. The time in canteen, interacting with others, fellow students, is an equally important thing when you go to a college, and other stuff. So there are things like arts and competitions, and college is about not only about academics but also about non-academic stuff, which builds your personality, which prepares you for the job that is coming. And all of that I see, obviously part of it will get covered in the online space, but I see definitely this hybrid model will evolve, with things that are best done in online will be done online, things that are best done in offline will be done in an offline, with the ultimate aim, like I keep saying, with mastery of for all, which is every student scoring 100% marks rather than this percentile phenomena, and with online helping there in a bigger way. There is one question on the fee structure and stuff which I don't want to miss, otherwise it will be felt that I have not taken that question. My response, and then Prashil you can come in, is obviously all universities across the globe is facing this similar issue. I don't think it is a short-term program where you can base everything on one semester. There will be models of social distancing based access to labs which will be provided, and students would be given that option. Prashil, you want to quickly respond to that? This is our last.
I just went through that question. Yes, this has been an apprehension with a lot of people. But however, all of us, I am saying, we also need to understand that going online or going remote does not entail any reduction in cost, primarily because it is an additional investment, if you ask me. And with all the global universities like Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard and MIT Boston going online, it is not for the sake of going online, but essentially it is for the benefit of the students. It is benefit of the student community at large, so that otherwise they lose on this whole time. See, there is another way to look at this particular scenario, in the sense, now that there is a pandemic, you cannot come to the campus, so let us take a break. But taking a break again is not going to serve the purpose of anyone. So having this technology or having these tech tools is essentially to augment the learning. As we have been saying, or as all the panelists have been saying, online learning is not a replacement for campus learning. And as Manish pointed out, and Manish summed it quite rightly, it is the hybrid model of education which will be the future, where whatever is done best in online should be done online. Whatever is done best offline should be done offline. However, the current situation, and as Rajiv was mentioning, and all the global surveys are pointing towards that, it is nearly impossible for anyone to really come together and do something. So what do you do in that case? And technology in this case comes handy. So we are not saying that because there is a technology, you are not expected to come back to the campus anytime again. If you ask me, we are dying to welcome all our students back to the campus. but the situation does not warrant us to do that. So as a result of which, now Canvas is just one tool. I also made a passing comment of, say, Canvas having integration with 400 other tools. So there will be many such tools which will be integrated with the Canvas LMS of Avantika in the due course. So the bottom line here remains that the nature of the tools is changing. Earlier you are using different tools. Now the students will be using different tools. The mediums are changing. The mode is changing. The quantum doesn't change. So obviously, honestly speaking, without making any increase in the fees, the university is trying to give this benefit to all the students. Yeah, Manish.
Thanks, Prashil. And I think we are at the end of, in fact, I've exceeded by a minute.
Great.
So Vaibhav, over to you. I thank the fellow panelists, Christopher, Rajiv, Prashil, for sharing their frank views. Vaibhav, you want to close the conference?
Yes. Thank you so much, Manish, and thank you so much, everyone, all the speakers, for enlightening us with this thought-provoking discussion. I think online learning is ready to set its tone in about education in the pandemic world, and I think it's about time that we get used to this, like we have done in other aspects of it. So I think this is the way forward, and I'm sure this discussion would have certainly been constructive in clarifying numerous concerns of all the students and all the other stakeholders. We look forward to having an impactful education ecosystem, and we once again would like to thank all the audience who have come at large. In fact, we just to mention it once, we overshot our limit of 250. So probably next time onwards, we'll need to have a bigger ecosystem to have this in place. Yes, sir, you want to say something, VC sir?
My last point. Welcome to Avantika.